occur to them. Ms. Walton, our remaining time, just a couple of questions for you. We talked about the sunflower plant. It's the regulatory environment that is currently preventing that plant from going forward, correct?
I think the utility MAC rule, yes, we referred to the fact that the standards are well below what vendors can design to.
What they can actually design technologically
Correct.
available. Does that threaten the Colorado economy? Does that threaten the businesses that the cooperatives work with?
Yeah, it threatens our ability to provide reliable and affordable energy to our entire service territory and Colorado's economy, yes.
Yeah. And then going back to the SIP issue, if the EPA does not approve the Regional Haze State Implementation Plan that we've worked with bipartisan support in Colorado, will that potentially hurt jobs in Colorado and the Colorado economy?
It will. It essentially, each time we have a new rule that is layered on top of all the others, the existence of the coal industry and our coal plants is threatened with each one.
Thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I'm going to thank the gentlelady, and we recognize Mr. Terry.
Thank you. And Ms. Walls, has Tri-State complied with the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act?
Yes.
All right. So what we're talking about here in regulations are new proposed regulations, not whether or not you've complied with the last.
That's true.
And in your testimony, you mentioned a couple. You mentioned Utilimac and fly ash. Those directly affect your ability to produce energy, correct?
Correct.
All right. Are there other, like Boiler Mac, that also impact your business?
Yes, there's a long list of other regulations.
So the issue is, despite that, that there's some overall number that's similar to the number of regulations issued from one administration to the other, your industry is dealing with multiple ones at one time, correct?
Yes.
And what happens to the additional costs that are incurred to comply with the new rules?
Those are passed directly on to the end users of electricity because we're a not-for-profit entity.
So those costs are passed on. Have you at least looked at Utilimac, because at least with our utilities in Nebraska, they have to deal with Casper, Boiler Mac, Fly Ash, and Utilimac. The one that they think will be the most costly is Utilimac. Have you been able to determine what the cost per plant to comply with Utilimac?
It varies from plant to plant. I would say
Sure.
the most expensive rule we're facing right now is regional haze. However,
Okay.
there is a pancaking of these rules, and you really look at MACT costs you this, add on what regional haze costs, add on what the new water effluent standards cost, add on what the coal ash, add on what the boiler rule costs, and this is an increasing cost over time. The main issue we have is the fact that we have an air permit to build a new plant in Kansas, and this rule will stop that. You cannot get a technology company to say that, yes, we can design and build to those new standards. So essentially it will stop.
So the technology isn't even available to build to the new standards?
It is not available.
Okay, well that's certainty, isn't it? You're certain that you can't comply, therefore you don't build it.
Yes.
Okay, well good, then we've accomplished that. One last question then, is the issue, do you feel, and I think we all feel that we want clean water, we want clean air. Is there a cost-benefit analysis that you feel comfortable that the investments to comply or decision to shut down will actually increase public health in your area? Have you gotten records from the Colorado Department of Health that says will show that there's been X number of cases of elevated mercury in people in an area of one of your coal-fired plants, for example?
The cost-benefit analysis that we've seen has actually, the most recent one, and the rule that was finalized today is the utility MACT rule, and that cost-benefit analysis Really, it's a mercury rule, it's a hazardous air pollutant rule, and that the benefits that EPA estimates for mercury reduction is about $6 million. However, they go on to calculate and include economic benefit for reduction in particulate matter and estimate that that's, I believe the number is 90.
I have a rural district as well with some small cities in it. We have a median household income of about $36,000 per year. Household income, not individual. My constituents are very concerned not only about our loss of coal jobs because of what's been happening with regulations in that industry also affecting your industry, but also are concerned that we've got a lot of folks on fixed incomes and a lot of folks who just don't make the kind of money that sometimes Washington bureaucrats make and think that everybody can afford those kinds of increases. Would you state that the area that you serve is more like the Washington crowd or more like my district?
The area we serve is much like your district, yeah.
And so if my constituents are concerned about a 10 to 15% increase in their electric rate, then you believe that perhaps your folks that you serve would also be very concerned about significant power increases.
Yes, they're very concerned.
And do you all have, do you just do homes or do you also do businesses in that area, that rural area?
We do rural businesses as well.
And I believe that they use a lot of electricity too.
They do, and it's actually growing in states like Wyoming where we have oil and gas development.
And if their electric rates go up, how does that, do you know how that affects their competitiveness in the world market?
It makes it more difficult for them to compete in a world market when you don't have similar costs and regulations in other countries.
And so it would be fair to say, would it not, that it actually puts American manufacturers at a disadvantage when the regulations make their energy costs more than they might need to be otherwise?
I would agree. American businesses are at a disadvantage because of these increasing costs.
Work. On Tuesday, I sent a letter to Ms. Waltz asking her to come prepared to answer questions about any past or current arrangements Tri-State has or had with Dr. Michaels, New Hope, and any other affiliated organization. Ms. Waltz, according to an affidavit Dr. Michaels filed in federal court, Tri-State provided Dr. Michaels' advocacy group $50,000 in 2006 to work on climate science issues. That's correct, isn't it?
Congressman Waxman, I received your request late Monday in the day. I was in a meeting, but I needed to leave the office quick. But what I did is actually Googled Dr. Michaels because I had never heard of him, and I wasn't quite sure what the relevance to my testimony was here today.
Well, my question is, what about your company? I want to know whether Tri-State funded Dr. Michaels, his advocacy firm, or affiliated organizations before or after 2006 to work on climate science issues. Can you detail this funding history for the committee?
Based on the timing of your request, I have not had time to research this and bring forward information.
Will you get us that information for the record?
We are looking at your request, and we will bring a response to you as appropriate.
His affidavit, Dr. Michael's affidavit, also states that Tri-State, quote, requested that its support of $50,000 be held confidential, end quote. Do you know why Tri-State requested that its funding effort be held confidential?
I had no personal knowledge of Dr. Michaels or any work he had done with Tri-State.
Tri-State is an electric cooperative. It is not an organization that typically funds climate change science research, is it?
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I want to pursue my question.
Will the gentleman yield? I'd like to know
No,
why
the gentleman's
this
got
pertains
time.
to the hearing.
I'm asking my questions.
The gentleman has the time. I would caution the gentleman that
Mr. Chairman, point of order. My time is running out, and I don't want to be cautioned, and I don't want to be interrupted.
well, you
Ms.
have the
Waltz,
time.
I'll remember that the
are-
next time you ask somebody to yield.
Gentleman
I
has the time.
ask unanimous consent. I be given an additional minute so I could yield.
No, you go ahead. We'll give you
The gentleman
extra
object.
time.
Are you the one who asked me to yield?
The gentleman has the time. Use your time
Okay.
because your time's running.
Tri-State's an electric cooperative. It's not an organization that typically funds climate change science research, is it?
Tri-State funds
Yes or no?
R&D. Tri-State funds R&D for carbon management and carbon policy.
Are there other climate scientists? Well, these are things I want you to get to us. Are there other climate scientists that Tri-State funds? Can you provide information about any such activities for the committee? Ms. Waltz, $50,000 is a lot of your members' money. What did Tri-State hope to get in return? I want answers to that. I think it's pertinent to this integrity of the testimony we get before the Congress. Your members might be surprised to learn that their money was used to fund an advocacy firm to downplay the significance of climate change. When witnesses come before the committee, they should speak honestly and not mislead the Congress about their intentions or supporters. Ms. Waltz, your information will help us determine whether that was accurate or not. This is not the only incidence of this committee receiving questionable testimony. TransCanada recently testified that the steel to be used in the Keystone XL pipeline would be manufactured at an American steel mill. It turns out that's not the case. Given the information, it's imperative this committee ensure that it's receiving accurate testimony. I think that should be of the interest of members on both sides of the aisle. A good place to start would be to further examine Dr. Michael's conduct and determine if he provided false or misleading information to the committee. And I'd like to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to clear a couple of things up for the record to start out with. The first thing I want to clear up is with Ms. Waltz, because I've consulted with Mr. Waxman's staff here, and I just want the record to be really clear. It was not Mr. Waxman's intention to in any way disparage you personally. He was trying to explore the relationship between this consultant and Tri-State. And I just wanted to clarify that because one of my colleagues had made that insinuation. And Dr. Mitchell.
And also, I think, Ms. Waltz, I think she aptly pointed out that Mr. Waxman, in his opening statement, was moving in a direction that normally you just ask questions about what's relevant, and in this case he didn't, but I respect what she just said, in which she did not mean any harm. In fact, the committee tries to respect the witnesses, but I would say to her,
has expired. Recognize the gentleman from Colorado for 5 minutes for purpose of questions.
I thank the chairman for the time, and I thank the witnesses for testifying today. And I would just, Mr. Chairman, ask that perhaps maybe we could get some clarification from Mr. Waxman that Ms. Wall's testimony wasn't anything but truthful. I think there's it may have come across as he was impugning the witness here, and I don't believe that that's what he was trying to do, but I would just like to perhaps get that clarification from Mr. Waxman. And along those same lines of questions, I've served on this committee for about a year now, a little over a year now, and have been to many hearings where the issue is one thing, the issue is jobs, as is the case here, the issue is regulations, as the issue is here, and my colleague will go a different direction than the purpose of the hearing. In fact, it's not the first time that a red herring has been used by my colleague. In fact, so many have been used that perhaps they ought to be an endangered species. But I would like